So in this era of cancel everything, with Confederate statues being ripped down, the Washington Redskins being forced to change their name, and everyone kneeling to the cult of woke, we're seeing the right kind of just cower on the sidelines. They're afraid to push back. I don't think they know how to push back. But here we have someone taking the reins in the culture war and actually throwing some fastballs right back at them. And this is how you do it right. Louie Gohmert urges House to ban Democratic Party for supporting slavery. Rep. Louie Gohmert, representative of Texas, introduced a privileged resolution on Thursday that calls upon Congress to ban the Democratic Party for supporting slavery and the Confederate States of America. Hey, we got to get rid of the Confederate flag? No skin off my nose or back. Doesn't bother me at all. But what about the Democratic Party? That was their flag. Gohmert released a privileged resolution on Thursday that details the Democratic Party's history of supporting slavery, the Confederacy, and other racist policies throughout the party's history. A privileged resolution allows for Gohmert or any other congressman to supersede or interrupt other matters that might be called upon or pending before the House. And what could be more imminent and important than these issues? I mean, got riots in the streets supposedly over this sort of thing. And so it requires the House to either table the motion, which is a vote against, or bring it to the floor within 2 days, so putting the pressure on. And so his resolution provides a long list of instances in which the Democratic Party supported slavery, the Confederacy, and its racist policies. And it goes back to the 1840s. It goes way back. And there's a number of these. Interesting one, the Democratic Platform of 1860, seeking to uphold the Fugitive Slave Law of 1850, required law enforcement officials to arrest any individual suspected of being a runaway slave. Kind of puts stop and frisk to shame. And stated that the enactments of the state legislature to defeat the faithful execution of the Fugitive Slave Law are hostile in character, subversive of the Constitution, and revolutionary in their effect. That's a revolution I can get behind. No Democrat in Congress supported the 14th Amendment, which gave full citizenship to freed slaves. Think about that. It passed in 1868 with 94% Republican support and 0% support from Democrats. No Democrat in Congress supported the 15th Amendment, which gave freed slaves the right to vote. It passed in 1870 with 100% Republican support and 0% support from the Democrats. Various state Democratic Party officials enacted policies to disenfranchise and systemically suppress, great use of words, right? Turn their own rhetoric against them. The right of African Americans to vote. The resolution specifically cites the 1902 Constitution of the state of Virginia that disenfranchised about 90% of the African American voters at the time, and it reduced the number of African American voters from 147,000 down to 10,000, and the measure was supported almost exclusively by the Virginia Democrats. Yeah, that's a little bit worse than naming your team the Indians or the Redskins. What about Vikings? You know, those are my people. Nobody consulted me if you can use Vikings as a mascot. I think I want reparations. The administration of President Woodrow Wilson, a Democrat, began a racial segregation policy for U.S. government employees in 1914. You had to submit a photograph with each employment application. Hilarious. When the Democratic Party held its national convention in 1924 in New York City at Madison Square Garden, the event was commonly referred to as a Klan bake due to the influence of the bad guys. The Senate Democrats held a 75-calendar day filibuster against the passage of the Civil Rights Act in 1964. So this idea that they flipped in the 60s, Democrats in the Senate held a 75 calendar day filibuster against the passage of the Civil Rights Act. By the way, and I don't think it says here, 80% of Republicans supported the Civil Rights Act. Only 58% of Democrats, they barely got 50-50. And they filibustered it for almost 2.5 months. This is in the 60s. Former Senator Robert Byrd, a recruiter for the Klan, led Democrats to oppose civil rights for African Americans. And I want to tell you a little bit more about Mr. Robert Byrd. This guy was in government forever. He was, Byrd led the Democrat caucus in numerous roles depending on whether his party held control of the Senate. He was Senate Majority Leader, Senate Minority Leader, President pro tempore, and President pro tempore emeritus. As President pro tempore, a position he held 4 times in his career, he was third in line of presidential succession after the Vice President and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Excuse me. This guy was third in line to be president during the Obama administration. He was a recruiter for the Klan. He was at the level, the rank is called like the Grand Cyclops or something ridiculous. He was a mentor to Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden has spoken glowingly about him. This guy was third in line to be president in 2010. And he was a recruiter for the Klan. So don't give me the parties flip stuff or Dixiecrats or any of that. You know, Trevor Noah's attempted answer to this problem. No. The guy died in office in 2010. This is modern times. It's just been hidden behind entertainers, musicians, academics, and slick advertising. And really pointing at the other side. It's like they did it, not us. Them. And people fall for it. Democrats enacted and enforced Jim Crow laws and civil codes that forced segregation and restricted freedoms. Joe Biden was a noted segregationist too. I've done a video on that in this playlist as well. And in June, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi ordered the removal of portraits of 4 previous speakers of the House who served in the Confederacy, stating that these portraits set back our nation's work to confront and combat bigotry. Okay. Gohmert's resolution notes that Speaker Pelosi removed these 4 guys, and they were all Democrats. Gohmert's resolution calls for Pelosi to remove from the House wing of the Capitol of any House building any item that names, symbolizes, or mentions any political organization or party that has ever held a public position that supported slavery or the Confederacy. Democrats. Gohmert told Breitbart in an exclusive statement on Thursday that this resolution outlines a great portion of the Democratic Party is filled with racism and hatred. Hold them to their own supposed standards. Therefore, Gohmert argued that because leftists now demand that the country must eliminate entities, symbols, and reminders of America's past, then the Democratic Party must change to recognize its own loathsome and bigoted past. Indeed. He explained, as outlined in the resolution, a great portion of the history of the Democratic Party is filled with racism and hatred. Since people are now demanding we rid ourselves of entities, symbols, and reminders of the repugnant aspects of our past, then the time has come for Democrats to acknowledge their party's loathsome and bigoted past and consider changing their party name to something that isn't so blatantly and offensively tied to slavery, Jim Crow, discrimination, and the KKK. As the country watches violent leftists burn our cities, tear down our statues, and call upon every school, military base, and city street to be renamed, it is important to note that past atrocities these radicals claim to be so violently offensive were largely committed by members in good standing of the Democratic Party. Gohmert continued, whether it be supporting the most vile forms of racism or actively working against civil rights like Joe Biden, Democrats in this country perpetrated these abhorrent forms of discrimination and violence practically since their party's inception, and I would add, to present day. To avoid triggering innocent bystanders by the racist past of the Democratic Party, I would suggest they change their name. That is the standard to which they are holding everyone else, so the name change needs to occur. All right, Trevor Noah, no more excuses. If we've got to take down the flags, if we got to take down the monuments, fine. But we really should go to the source of the political power that has fueled racism through the decades. And that's the Democratic Party. It's time. It's time. You can read the full resolution here. But, obviously this isn't going to pass, but these sort of statements, when they, like, this is good, this is real jujitsu here. Like, this is something actually pushing back. And it's good to see a Republican actually find their spine and make a point like this, because we're seeing such absurdity, this reductio ad absurdum. They're actually self-owning at this point. And it's like, okay, we got to rename a football team because of a mascot? No, I say we go straight to the source of all the discrimination in history. I say it's time to rename the Democratic Party.